All right, Laura Hatcher, we are so happy to have you here at She Served Sheroes. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I see your amazing photography in the back. I love that screen in the back. Just a
Thank you.
reflection of who you are. That looks
Awesome. Thank you.
great. I always like to start with the exact same question. We're definitely get into all that you've accomplished and where you are today. But as talking to female military, women military members, I always like to ask, what made you sign the dotted line? What made you join the military?
Okay. I was raised by a Navy veteran. An E9. My mother married my stepfather when he was an E6, and I basically followed the last part of his career. And he was a disciplinarian. I was pretty much raised by, I like to say, by the chief's locker. I learned about white glove inspections when I was 15. Let me show you how much dust you left there. But he was amazing and inspired me, obviously, to I don't know, just to find out something greater than myself, right? I was also an only child, and so they raised me to believe I could do anything that I wanted to do, regardless of my gender. My mother's British, European. I have a little different outlook on things, and she would encourage me to be creative. And honestly, the reason I joined the Navy is because someone told me I couldn't, which was the
Really?
wrong thing to do. Oh yeah, I'll show you. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a well-known story, but my dad introduced me when I was 15 years old. We were stationed in the Republic of Panama. That was one of his duty stations, over in a place called Coco Solo, which is on the Atlantic side of the isthmus. And he introduced me to a young Marine who must have recently graduated from the Naval Academy, because the first group of women that graduated was in 1980, and this would have been about 85. I was 15 in 85, which, don't do the math in public, because now you know how old I am. But so he must have graduated somewhere either during that period where the first crop of women came through, or sometime after. And I say that because he got me so excited about the Naval Academy, brought out all of his books, and showed me all the opportunities that he had. And then that very end was like a weight dropped on my head. He goes, "Yeah, it's a great place, but you probably wouldn't make it because you're just a girl." And
Oh,
I'm like, what? What did you just say to me? Went home so mad. Dad, where do I sign up for this place? I have to show him. And my dad laughs. He goes, I didn't know he was gonna do that. I'm like, well, he did, and I'm pretty sure that's why I joined, because back then I was the kind of girl that if the boys were playing football, well then why aren't I playing football? I want to
that's
be a
awesome.
cheerleader.
Right?
Right? They said I could do anything I want to do.
So did
you
you
know,
enter directly after high school?
so I applied while we were overseas. This is way before the internet, so things get lost in mail. That mail thing where you actually put a stamp on it,
Right?
fill out the bubble application. Got lost. I did my senior year. That was my junior year in high school in Panama. We had to leave because of that little tantrum that guy Noriega had. They evacuated us, and I did my last senior year in California, and I reapplied. And yes, I joined right out of high school, very young. I was 17 when I graduated. Just changing, having grown up the younger years of my life in England, I was a little bit of ahead, because when you convert over from the British system to the English system, doesn't necessarily to the American system, excuse me, it doesn't necessarily correlate one for one, right? So I was very young. I was 17 when I graduated, and I went to the prep school, Naval Academy Prep School, which is out of Newport, Rhode Island. And there's quite a few feeder schools for all the service academies, but that one belongs to the Naval Academy. If you make it through that successfully, you enlist for 1 year while you're there. If you make it through that successfully, and what I mean by successfully is you pass academics and you stay out of trouble, then you're guaranteed to get in and start over.
Yeah. Start all over again.
Yeah, the 5-year, 4-year program.
Got it.
But some of us need 13th grade, so I was very thankful for it.
Okay. Awesome. So that's kind of what led you in. And I'm sure we'll touch on some of your military experience, but I'm going to fast forward all the way from that girl who was told no at 15, man, you probably can't even do this, that showed him different, all the way up to today. Today, who is Laura Hatcher? One. And who are you in business?
Okay. So I still feel like I'm serving. You'll notice I'm still wearing one of the 3 colors I wore for 31 years. I still have a name tag. Now I tell people it's more for me as I get older to remind myself. um, today I'm a professional photographer, full time. I retired as a 06, a Navy captain, and I thank you. But that means nothing now. You have to completely reinvent yourself, right? And what I tell people is when you leave the military, you have before you leave, you have this entire resume on your uniform, right? You don't have to open your mouth. It's up to you to make a bad impression, but your uniform, your bling, your rank usually speaks before you do. And people just assume that, you're competent, right? Well,
Right.
when you leave, that all goes away. There's nothing, which is not why I have my name. This is more about being professional and just trying to promote a brand, right? Because I'm a brand now, and it takes you a while to figure that out. But I took my military security clearances, and I ran in the opposite direction from all the 3-letter agencies that surround my home in the DC area, because my thought was, I've just spent really from age 17, don't do math, 31 years, okay, following orders and doing what they told me to do, not because I really wanted to do it, but because, that was what you had to do to survive, right? And they kept promoting me. So I must have done something okay, either that or everybody left, right? And now I get to choose. And that took a moment, that aha moment where you realize, oh, you get to choose what you want to do. Some of us find comfort in going back and doing stuff that we know that we can do, like intelligence. But just because you're good at something enough to get promoted doesn't necessarily mean that you have a passion for it or that you like it. So I basically looked inside and said, let me introduce myself to myself and do something different, whatever that is.
And I would like to hear more about that. Looking inside of yourself to do something different, one. And two, you speed bumped over the aha moment. One thing that I find with women veterans, I'm one of them myself, it's like we can really highlight that military experience and say, here's where I am. A lot of us just skip over that in between the work, which, of getting out the military to where we are now, which
Yes.
that's the space where we're all trying to figure out that gap moment. So could you tell us more about that space in between and the aha
Sure.
moment?
It was an ugly time. I can say that now looking back, but when I was in it, it was only a short period of time, maybe about a year and a half, feeling of complete loss. I attribute it to almost like losing a family member, a grieving moment, a lot of depression. I probably didn't realize what I was going through at the time, mainly because my uniform defined me. I was the uniform. I've been with that service since I was 9. And before that, my mother was briefly married to my biological father, who's in the Air Force. So, a little bit of that. I don't mention that part. But I mean, the military has been in my DNA from really the beginning. And that's, you get accustomed to being inside that bubble, as you know. It's a very protected bubble. And so when you leave, honestly, I've raised 3 sons with my husband and watched them adult and go to college. I felt like I had just graduated from college, and now I'm learning about taxes and healthcare and all these things that I didn't know people actually showed a health card. What do you mean you want to? What do you mean you want to see my proof of insurance?
Don't you mean my last 4?
Exactly. It was like a completely foreign language. I'm showing up on time, which means early. People are intimidated because I'm, you know, it's not 9 o'clock yet. I'm like, yeah, but it's 8:58. Where is everybody?
Right.
Why is that threatening? I didn't fit in. And the first job I took, I don't talk about it that much. It was a learning opportunity for me, and I've gotten a lot of great friendships out of it, but it didn't work out. And I think that's something that people you can get as much advice as you can. And I encourage you to use all the resources that are out there for transition, but you truly have to experience it yourself in terms of journey. You can't over prepare for it because we all respond differently. We all emotionally respond differently. And one thing in TAP they don't talk about is that emotional side, that loss of community, that loss of common language, the comfort of having a paycheck that comes without even thinking about it, all those benefits that you don't even realize, there's no numerical value on it, right? Because we don't think in that terms. And now it's like, oh, I have to do an allotment for my healthcare. I have to do an allotment for my dental. I have to think through my insurance. There's so much. It's almost like you're a rebirth, if you will. And I wasn't ready for that. So much so that I got a job while I was still on terminal leave, which is another mistake. Take time off. But overachievers don't have a gap in service, right? We feel like we have to have a job right away. And I did. I was double dipping for about 2 or 3 months. And then the IRS reminded me a little bit later, hey, you were double dipping. and here's this thing called taxes, which you've never paid because you're exempt.
So at retirement, it's like completely starting over.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I would say even if I'd gotten out after 4, 6, 8 years, it probably maybe not as overwhelming, but I would think there's some similarities, right? Because again, you've been comforted by that security blanket.
Yes,
So,
definitely. In the bubble versus out of the bubble.
exactly.
So when you got out, you got that job. It didn't work through. I want to talk more about that process to where we got to where we are now, because I would definitely want to talk about the accomplishments you've made in your business, but I would like to hear more about that transition journey until you found the comfort in yourself.
Yeah, I kept trying things that I knew I wouldn't like just to say I tried them. And I don't like them. And I know I don't like them because I tried them. Right. So I did government contracting. I knew I wasn't going to like that because, no one likes government contracting. And the people that do, they're, probably have a great paying job and it makes ends meet. But for me, it was, I was only in it for a hot minute. But I felt like, that conversation we had earlier about having no resume, I felt like I was constantly trying to prove myself. Because 5 minutes ago, I was actually pretty smart and I didn't open my mouth. Now I have to say, mother, may I? And as a contractor, you don't have any leadership. And I'm the kind of person, if you're struggling to come through the door with a package, I'm running over that door and I'm opening it. I want to help. I want to leave things better than I found them. And that's not what contracting is about. Sit down, shut up, color. No offense to contractors.
Right.
But it's by design, we're employing your expertise. And I just couldn't see myself not being a leader, okay. Right? Because I've been raised as a leader from, day one, really. Right. When my parents told me I could do anything, go lead yourself somewhere and figure it out.
Right. And you did great. Were you always into photography in the back end and then
No. So I think everybody kind of stumbles into, our generation, I don't want to call you as old as me, but we all had dark rooms in high school and you kind of dabbled in the yearbook and it didn't take.
Okay.
I've seen some of those pictures. I don't know what I was doing. No, I actually started photography, honestly. This is going to sound silly, but this is how I start everything because I was bored. It was the winter months here in the DC area in January of 2015. And I thought, well, let me go just take a class. and get a hobby. You know, that the tail end of my career, I still had about 3 more years of active duty. And I honestly, I was bored. Same reason I have 3 sons, a Harley, a drone, studio.
Right. And with your photography, though, I would love to get into that. You use drones.
When I can, I
Okay.
cannot legally fly where I live because it's the entire DMV area is restricted. The airspace, it's illegal. I mean, there are people that do, but not this licensed FAA operator because I like to keep that.
Right.
But no, but I have used it occasionally. I've done some amazing projects where I got to follow a group of 20 women across the United States from Portland, Oregon to Arlington, Virginia. They were all on motorcycles. I was in an SUV with a 16-year-old, 2 cameras, and a drone. And in the states where I could fly, which was nerve-wracking, right? Because we're talking 20 motorcycles coming at various speeds, getting a drone up, knowing if they're going to show up while your battery is still full, not having a spotter telling you where they're coming. You know, it was stressful, but it was fun. And I did get more opportunities to fly during that project. And that was an amazing project. We were celebrating the 100th anniversary. It ended up being 101 because of the pandemic. It was shifted a year. But it was the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, so the suffrage movement. And we took a trail across the United States that some of the suffrage movement did. And it was just neat. It was just an amazing project, a very woman empowering kind of project, which is one of the reasons why I got involved with it. So
That is awesome. And excuse me, you know how you're saying you still kind of have the service mindset, you want to help wherever. And then we also just kind of get kind of programmed, but giving back, you know, once you've been in the service, I feel like it's kind of a whole different perspective in your business now. You still give back, you're still serving, you're still honoring the military with your business. Could you tell us about that a bit? One, and two, how did your business get started? We haven't heard that yet. So how did you stumble into actually starting your business? Not stumble in.
yeah,
What was your journey?
no, it was a stumble. So what I do is I do professional headshots. My audience is typically military transitioning veterans. And I think I usually say the niche, you know, you're told as a business to niche down, right? Know your audience. You know, I could shoot all different things, but if you have a concentrated message, the brand does better, right? And I do a variety of things, but for the most part, it's headshots, events, and business branding. And my niche found me. You know, I think it goes back to feeling so lost when I transitioned that I just went back to what I knew, right? And so when I'm sitting across from a veteran, and I started off by volunteering at TAP classes, I would go to the local TAP here in the DMV area at one of the bases, and I said, hey, I'm trying to build my portfolio, trying to get comfortable with my workflow. Can I come and give complimentary headshots to the TAP students? You know, I'll take them out one at a time, not to disrupt class. And that was great, right? One, because I had just transitioned. So it was more like therapy for them and me. And they had forgotten the whole reason, you know, people feel vulnerable in front of a camera. So they had forgotten about the camera because we're now talking about, hey, it's safe to come out. I'm on the other side. Look, I'm surviving. You can do it too. And we talk about the pros and cons. And that was so rewarding, right? To be able to contribute to someone's journey like that. How I went into business was kind of an accident, out of fear, mainly. You know, the military teaches you there are rules, and even if you try to feign ignorance, there's probably rules. And I started photographing classic cars. So I have thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of beautiful classic cars from going to meetups in my local neighborhood. And one day someone said, hey, I'd love to see the photography that you're doing of my car. And then when they saw it, they're like, oh, can you print that? Can you do something with that? So I used to make calendars, and I used to blow them up on metal prints. And then when the money started coming in, I was like, I think there's some taxes or something I'm supposed to be doing here. The naval officer in me said, you know better, go figure it out. And then
Yeah.
before you know, I have an LLC. I've literally stumbled into business.
Okay.
And then I just kind of did it as a side hustle for a little while. And the last thing on that is there's no money in classic cars because the people who own those things cannot afford the photography because they're still paying off for those classic cars, right? All the parts.
Yeah.
So
Got you. Okay, well, that is very interesting. Stumbling, what I have found, even though we stumble a lot of times when you don't know, the answers come to you because you start asking questions and then you're exposed to different resources, different opportunities, things that help. And so, twofold again, were there any resources that you can speak of that helped you with really launching your business? And then two, now that you're in your business and your business flow, because it takes something different for all of us, depending on what your business is. But for you, what is that one thing you can't live without? It may be a tool, it may be software, it could even be a mantra, a mindset. But what tools helped you in your business get to your business established? And now what are your, if you could tell someone about a resource or tool, you can't live without this.
yeah. So I now teach photographers how to start a business
Nice.
because I made so many mistakes. And the reason I figured out those mistakes is because for whatever reason, I started my business out of my home. And then I had an opportunity through mentorship. So I have to stress anytime you go into business, regardless of what type of business it is, surround yourself with people who that you aspire to be. Surround yourself with people who have walked and are doing well, in their business, because they will help you. They will keep you accountable. So I very much believe in accountability buddies. I have several myself that I meet with regularly, and just to keep you honest, because as a solopreneur, it's very lonely, right? And you're the only one looking out for yourself, and you just kind of lose motivation sometimes, right? The resources that I've used are plentiful, so much so that I have a PDF that I hand out freely. I'm like, hey, these are all the things I've used, but just to rattle off a few, I'm sure you've heard some of these. There's the VBOC, which is the Veteran Business. I apologize, I don't know the whole acronym, but they have Boots to Business.
I think it's Veteran Owned Business Center or Veteran Business. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bleep that in.
Yeah, VBOC, we'll put it in.
VBOC. But they have Boots to Business, and that's under the SBA. But the one that is my favorite is University of Syracuse has an entire toolbox under the IVMF, right? The Institute for Veteran Militaries and Families. And one of the first ones I used was VWise,
Yes.
Veteran Women. Inspiring the spirit of entrepreneurship or something like that. I got to work on my acronyms.
It's okay. We'll get that one in too. VWise is a great resource to share.
Awesome. Have you done it?
I have not. I just know of it, and I will be looking into VWise myself, actually, and Syracuse.
Yes. So Syracuse, I've done quite a few of theirs. VWise, they had a new one during the pandemic called Rise, and just really good stuff. And then I recently have finished Bunker Labs. And this is a personal thing for me. I make a point of having some type of quarterly, at least on a monthly basis. I do a networking event. On a quarterly basis, I will sign up for some type of resource like the ones I'm talking about. So Bunker Labs had Veteran in Residence, which was a 6-week cohort that you met online, and then at least one of the weeks every so often. I think we met in person as well. That was good. And then the most recent one I had was the Veteran in Residence was 6 months. The Breaking Barriers was 6 weeks, all online, and that was incredible with Renee Bob. I mean, the resources that she's sharing, she's amazing. She's amazing. And then I've signed up for probably more than I should because I don't necessarily get to them. But I try to, if I see a good resource. Verizon, believe it or not, has a huge toolbox for entrepreneurs that is free. But the one that I didn't mention that probably should have been at the top of the list, because I teach this in my business class, is a Small Business Development Center, which, regardless of whether you're a veteran or not, completely free in over major cities across the United States. And they, depending on how their staff operates, You sometimes have, at least mine did, had monthly webinars, get together so I could learn and meet all the small business owners in the area. But initially, if you're starting a business, and this is how I realized that I did things horribly wrong, when I shifted from my home into a brick and mortar, for whatever reason, I thought, I'm legit now if I go get a brick and mortar. So let me go get some help. Let me go find out what I'm supposed to do, because I now am taking over this building from my mentor that I had mentioned earlier. And when I went in with my counselor, she had a comprehensive list, and we start going down all the things that I needed to do for the City of Alexandria, which is only 10 minutes from my home in Fairfax County, Alexandria, but two completely different tax codes, two different business license requirements, very similar. As we're going through this list, I'm like, oh, is that tax in Fairfax too? Oh, is that tax in? And I realized I had missed, because I hadn't done this checklist. I hadn't gone to the Small Business Development Center when I was in my home, because the internet makes it too easy for us, right? You can Google your way into so much trouble. You can YouTube your way, and they don't necessarily talk, right? You can get an LLC like that. It doesn't mean you're in business. Many cities and counties expect you to pay to play, which is get the business license and then give us some money because you're making money, which is called a business tax. And you don't know this because you don't know what you don't know when you're first starting out. So instrumental to start with. Let me rewind. Start with the Small Business Development Center.
There we go. Okay.
Right. And that's, I mean, I just gave you half my class right there. That's that is my mantra, because they know, and they're the ones that are going to keep you out of trouble, because they're going to give you guidance based off where you live, the city, the county, the state. When someone says, you know, oh yeah, you need this, stop and go, okay, where do you live? Right. It might not apply to you, right?
Right. That's important. That is awesome. Thank you for all of that information, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we feel like we're on an island alone. And it's really just the vulnerability of sharing information. I know that you're a part of Veteran in Residence. I saw you on the lookbook, and I'm in Veteran in Residence right now with Bunker Labs. I did the Breaking Barriers in Entrepreneurship with Renee Bob as well. I still get her grant list every month, right, which is just amazing. Appreciate it as much. But where I met you, or where I saw you, was at the Women Veteran Alliance. And that is something that I am new to. Could you speak about that organization a bit?
Yeah, and I'm new to it too. So that was my that was my first event. But Melissa Washington is awesome. And I've been a member of that for about a year maybe. And then when I saw the unconference, I grabbed my best friend and I said, let's go do this, because it's you have to that's another lesson I think I've been learning, is you just can't stay in your industry, right? If I hung out with just photographers, we'd go around in circles making the same mistakes. I've got to get outside and see how other industries do it. I've got to interact with other people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. And then the other thing is take advantage of all your affinity groups that you belong to. We're women veterans. We're veterans. I'm a Naval Academy alum. We have a very strong Naval Academy alum women group. We have a strong, fill in the blank. You can probably find several different communities that you belong to. And so the Women Veterans Alliance was, to me, an opportunity to find yet another community to be a part of. And no regrets. I had fun in Vegas, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm actually local to Vegas. And because I am in the Veteran in Residence program, it's constant networks and networking. And in my program, which they've told us we're a little different, we meet in person every week. So it's not just virtual. Even when we have the virtual meetups, we're in person meeting virtually with Nationwide. So they told us that even coming into the Vegas show cohort, that their showcase rate is 95%. They're very serious about who they let into the program. So one of our ambassadors has been very hands-on with presenting us with networking opportunities. And someone in the cohort gave us tickets where they were sponsored. So we were able to
That's awesome.
goals. Yeah, it was. And so we've had a lot of opportunities like that in our cohort. We actually are sponsored to go to MCON that is coming up. We have
Yeah.
the MIC coming up. So Military Influencer Conference.
Yep.
That's
I
one
know
thing
that
about
one.
military. We're always saying things in abbreviation.
Yep.
And, you know, while this is geared towards minority, female, veteran entrepreneurs, I hope that, you know, we get a large female audience overall. So trying to watch myself with the acronyms. Because especially with like the resources you're providing with the SBDC, you know, that applies to everyone.
It
So
does.
whether you have military experience or not, if you're out here as an entrepreneur, like you were saying, other things, finding your demographic, your network, and finding where do you belong, there's already circles out there that you can get involved with.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's awesome that your cohort is so active like that. And I love when other groups branch out and introduce you to things that you wouldn't normally have learned about. So that's
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely been like an overload. I've it inspired this podcast for sure. Like, you know, the resources that have been coming are so abundant and overflowing. And I'm someone too. I want to help other people. And I'm like, you know, we've got to get these resources out there. I hear about something new like all of the time. Each one teach
awesome.
one.
Are you
So what
collecting them anywhere?
you know, I need to be creating a database. I want to create a database because as we're building out this website, we want to have a database of resources on the website.
Yeah.
So working on it, for sure. Working on it for sure. I know I heard you said you have a PDF with all of your resources
I
and that you teach a
do.
class.
I
So that
do. I
that
do.
is awesome. So impact I want to talk about before we move much forward. And you've talked about it all along. But what was the impact of the military and who you are today? Like you said, I mean, you're
Mm.
very organized, all of these things. And I really like to hear the transition of officers specifically because it is, I know it's night and day. You know, like you said, you show up, you don't have to open your mouth. Your
Yeah.
resume is all over you. You don't have to say anything
Yeah.
until you know like you go in business and you're starting over after 31 years. It's like a big difference. So how does that help you being in the
Yeah.
military to now?
So I always say that if you're on the fence about starting a business and you're a veteran, you can do it. And here's why. The military has trained you to be a leader, whether you're an E1 or an O1, all the way up to whatever you left, whatever rank, right? You were taught strategic thinking, planning, financial resources, problem solving, operations, all of those things. Okay, those aren't just cliches. It's in you. You just don't realize it, right? I am drawing on every single job that I've ever done. I've been in command. I was an XO. I was a department head. I was a training officer, an admin officer. I am now all those things again, right? But I talk to myself, obviously, because I wear all those hats.
Yeah.
My boss is awesome. She understands all those things. The things that the Navy taught me how to, this was a rude awakening. Time management, right? Come out of the military, you're great at time management. Well, that's not true. The military managed you. Your military managed your time. If anything, that was probably the hardest thing for me to figure out. 1,440 minutes in a day, and I own them all, right? And there are so many distractions, social media, and I have to be on. I keep telling myself I have to be on social media because I'm a business. Learning how to figure out when to stop working, right? Because when I was in my home, I went from that bedroom across the way into here, which is one of the reasons why I got a studio, because I had to put a partition, right? Those are the hard lessons, but the military training that you've absorbed is a blueprint for entrepreneurship. You may not see it, but once you get in it, you're going to be drawing on those skill sets. You may need to get a mentor, an accountability buddy, some resources to help you see, but you're going to go and go, oh, yes, I get this. I understand. You know, I should probably be thinking about next month. I should probably be, writing templates, right? When you wrote to your boss, there's a certain way you wrote to them. That's your client now, right?
Yeah.
When you're answering problems, you're not being contentious. You're trying to figure out what's the solution. That's problem solving, right? You never mouthed off at your boss. Well, maybe you did behind their back, but boss is always right, client's always right.
Right.
The brand, we've been a brand in uniform, right? You always look good, or at least you try to look good, right? Same thing in the business. It's all about the business, the name, the reputation. That was, for me, that was the Navy. Now it's, where is it? Laura Hatch
There
Photography.
we go.
And so it did take me a while to figure that out, because the other thing that we struggle from, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is imposter syndrome. Right? That negative talking, that inner bully that's inside that says you can't do it. Now, let's face it, I make up stuff along the way all the time. You don't necessarily have to tell anybody that, but the military taught you how to do that. I did not show up at command, having had command before. It was like sink or swim, figure it out. I didn't know how to do that command, but I did know how to do all the things that they taught me to do in terms of leadership and solve problems and take care of people and leave it how better than how you found it. But that particular job that they put me in charge of, no clue. But the same thing with business. You have no clue what's going to come at you every single day. Right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with money,
Right.
other people's money.
Exactly. And when you're depending on other people's money as well. But
Right.
that imposter syndrome note, I just think it's something that needs to be preached over and over and over again. We beat ourselves up so much.
Yes, we do. And I still suffer from it. And mainly because, when you're self-taught, I've used so many resources to get to where I am. And, every industry, I feel that every industry is saturated, but mine is too. Everybody has a camera, right? And there's a lot of microaggressions that I hear. I didn't pick up on them before, but now I hear them like, oh, this should only take you a few minutes. And I want to say, my outside voice wants to say, do you go into your doctor's office and say this only should take a few minutes? No, you don't. But my inside voice says, educate them. Right?
Yes.
Educate them on why it's not going to take a few minutes.
Yes.
Which is hard too, right? All right, and I apologize because that's probably a long answer, but what was the second part of that question?
I don't think you're having any long answers. It was great. I was just talking about the imposter syndrome and how that note could be talked about over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I embrace my imposter syndrome now. I do talk about it. I talk about it a lot, but mainly because I now feel that my imposter syndrome keeps me grounded, right? Because if I get to the point where I feel too confident, then I start to get too complacent.
Oh,
and then I'm not learning. You should be striving to learn. Even now I'm sitting here going, okay, it's November. Next year, I'm going to plan out and go to a conference that's specifically for photographers. I'm going to take some classes, right? Because I can always learn something. I'm currently listening to a webinar of somebody else teaching how to teach photographers how to get into business, because I want to see how they do it and see if there's anything that I can pull from that. You should always be striving to learn, much like the military didn't let us sit back and not qualify for something, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. And so imposter syndrome, I think, keeps you humble, grounded, and always wanting to learn. Because where it goes awry is if you let it take over. If you start believing when you're deaf scrolling on Instagram that everybody's better than you.
Right. Right, from the scroll.
Exactly. And you have to teach yourself that just because they didn't say thank you for their pictures or acknowledge your email, you still got their check. That's the thank you.
That's what counts.
Don't look into anything else.
Right. And there's so much. We just don't know what we don't know, like you said, right? Yes. So we just can't take anything personal. Just have to keep in our lane and keep striving forward.
I used to take everything personal. And then I realized I am competing with people's self-esteem. I can control flyaways, I can control blemishes, but I cannot control how you feel about yourself.
Right.
So I told myself, Lord, zip it. You don't care if they feel like they look fat or thin or whatever it is. It's not your problem. Because
Right.
I would sit there and try to, I'm a pleaser. It's like, what can I do to make it better? No, see, that is their
Yeah,
hang up, not yours.
exactly. You can't take ownership of it. Absolutely. Laura, you've been such a pleasure, and I thank you for all of the resources you've given, all of the knowledge. There's so many notes. I'm like, oh, I want to pull that out. Oh, I want to pull that out. So thank you. But before we conclude, I'm very much into reach forward, reach back, right? And
Mm.
so often I find myself that that's who I'm talking to. I can tell that you're one the same. So one I like to ask, who should reach out to you? If there was, anyone looking for their next steps, who should be reaching out to you? One, and then in connection and where you're going, what are you looking for next, or who are you trying to be connected to?
Mm. That's a good question.
Thank
Can
you.
you give me a heads up? I I would say anyone who needs me to push them right over the edge in that decision on whether or not they have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I am here to support. I'll be your cheerleader. But I think we can all, I mean, mentors don't have to be your best friends for the rest of your life, right? I could just come in and mentor you for 5 minutes and set you on your path. Whatever you think I can give you, if you see something in my portfolio, in my classes, or anything they've heard today, I just like people to understand that we can do when we put our minds to it. It's not just me, it's not just you, anyone, especially veterans. Come on, we are that percentage that, what is it, 1-2% of the country is actually eligible. You've already done the hard stuff. This is the easy stuff, right? You have it in you to succeed. You just need someone like me and you to show them, what skill sets they can pull from that I know they already know, right? Because they went through the similar training that we did. And use it to have a successful path. And rely on those resources. What do I look for? What am I looking for forward? I don't know where I'm going to be, 5 years from now, which is another thing that was challenging with a transition, right? I could always answer, where could it be in 5 years? Oh, I think I'll be a lieutenant commander, and then I'll be a captain, and then I'll be at this duty station. I can't say that now. No clue. Where I aspired to be is continuing to support people's legacies. That's my passion. Right? If you go to my website, it says your legacy deserves better. Right?
And your website is?
Laura Hatchett Photography. www.
There we go.
.com. And on there you'll see there's a heavy veteran theme, and mainly it's because I don't think that we did ourselves justice when we were growing up. We did not take enough pictures of ourselves in uniform because it was just a job. But I'm here to tell you, your family, adores you for the service. They adore you because they're a family, but they respect your service. And we don't have enough pictures in uniform. So my mantra is celebrate your service, document your legacy, right? Take a picture in every rank. My sons, 2 of them are about to serve. They were curious. They wanted to see pictures of me in uniform. I don't have that many to show them, mainly because I was avoiding their chocolate faces and snot nose on my uniform. So I never wore them around them, right? But the point is, it was just a job.
Right.
It's not just a job.
Right.
Right. It's a lifestyle. It's a commitment. Let us celebrate you. And that's what my website tells you. So looking forward, I hope I continue to leave that mark and contribute to, just the fabric of history when it comes to our veterans. So
That is awesome. Thank you so much. So I definitely want to thank you and appreciate you again for stopping by the She Served Sheroes Community Podcast. And before I let you go, is there any note, any resource, any tool, any last final thoughts, anything else you want to give us at all?
I am looking forward to seeing this podcast grow.
Thank you.
I actually like being on the ground floor because, because you can only go up from here.
Yes, yes. And we thank you so much for being part of our season one. I really was blown away, right? Again, like how we say, you don't know what you don't know. And when you start getting in rooms that kind of just open up your mind, it's like you can just see the path forward. And so this is something that I've been hesitating on for some time. Me and my partner have been talking about this for some time. And so it's kind of like one of the weeks in VIR, the homework assignment. I don't remember what it was, but it was like my commitment for the next week was I'm going to send out these invitations for the podcast. And there were very specific women that I was going after that I had my eye on. And I was just so thankful that like someone like yourself who really doesn't know me at all, I stalked you, obviously. I know I
I
know you.
will tell you, I did go through my phone, and my best friend, I'm like, do we know her? I'm like, did we take a picture? I feel bad. I don't remember talking to her.
I'm a stalker. And so
I am
I
too. Intel officer, right?
yes. So I had my list and it was just like, everyone just booked. So I'm
Yeah.
so thankful, encouraged, and inspired myself.
Yes, awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing, like I said, to seeing you grow. I'm excited for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we will definitely stay in touch with you all along the way. And I will give
Awesome.
you back your day. Thank you so much for being with us, Laura.
Thank
Have a great
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye.